on this computer. We are there.
Great.
We're ready.
Excellent.
Taking off.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, on this beautiful May Day. Welcome to How to Feel Your Best with Nutrition, a discussion on the importance of food in your mental wellness and physical wellness, of course. The best foods for brain health, joint health, and more. I'm David Gloverman, and I am the coordinator of supporting cast, which is part of PAL Ottawa, and I'll be your host today. Before we get started, I would ask that you mute your microphones, which I believe they all are, but if your microphone is not muted, I would ask that you do that. This session is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the PAL YouTube channel. There'll be a lot of technical information that Jenny will be providing. So, if you'd like to watch it again and get all the little details, which I think is important, I would encourage you to go to the PAL YouTube channel. And Jenny's slide presentation, her deck, PowerPoint, whatever you want to call it, will also be posted on our website for later viewing, and will be available as well by email. I can certainly have that sent out to you as well. I'm sure you'll have questions during Jenny's presentation. So I would ask that you post your questions on the chat function, as there will be a time for Q's and A's at the end that Jenny will try to answer. You don't have to wait until the end to actually write your question. You can actually, put it in the chat function as the presentation is going on, so you don't forget what the question was. Today's social circle is the kickoff of our Spring into Summer series, which will run from May to the end of June. And we'll be having probably, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I think about 10 or 12 different presentations. Some of them sort of arts related, some of them, covering other non-arts subjects. So for sure, you'll find these fascinating and entertaining on a range of subjects. And I would encourage you to check out the PAL Ottawa, www.palottawa.org for a list of all the presentations coming up. We haven't booked all the presentations, so I would encourage you to, check, every couple of days on the website to see the full range of the presentations. So today's session will be presented by Jenni Beharry. Jenny is a weight loss counselor, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, NNCP, clinical manager, and culinary nutrition expert. Jenny's goal is to help as many people as possible feel better in their own bodies, something we all want. She has a keen interest in health and nutrition and wants everyone to understand the healing power of real food, not junk food, real food. Jenny has a keen interest in hormonal health and digestive health. And Jenny is a FODMAPS master. She'll explain to you what that is, and has worked with women with endometriosis and adenomyosis, as well as PCOS. Focusing on eating disorders in both men and women is a passion of Jenny's when helping people better understand themselves and change the narrative, how they view themselves and the food they eat. Special thanks to the Ottawa Community Foundation for the support of this event and future events that will be taking place over the next coming months. So without any further ado, let's give a warm round of applause to Jenny.
Hi, folks. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. And I've pinned my video so you're not in it, and then we're just going to go through this, and then as we go through, you can put your questions in the chat, as David said. Thank you, and just put them in there, and then I'm happy to answer them. If I don't know something, I will get back to you with it, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes I don't know the things. Okay, so let's dive right in. So we're just going to go through these slides, and as questions come up, please put them in. And then I will talk to you just like a lot of pandemic life as well, and like how our lives have changed and just the way that we are eating. So when we're looking at this, you're basically thinking of like your mental health and yourself right now is one of the biggest things that has come out of the pandemic. And I think that it was very important beforehand, and it's even more important now. I mean, it was just as important before, but I think that people that may have thought that mental health wise, they were like this, like doing okay, were maybe starting to see that things weren't as easy as they originally had thought that they were going to be. So when we're looking at this, there's a lot of like connection that goes along with this and your overall gut health. So you've got a gut-brain axis. So there's an influence on like a gut motility. So inside your gut, like it secretes mucus and different acids and everything. And there's like a good microbial balance. So a lot of that gets like sent back to, I'm just gonna plug in my computer. A lot of that gets sent back into what is like, how does your stomach feel? So like when you felt nervous before previously and not felt your absolute best, has it been because of like something that's going on in your stomach? So sometimes people get like a nervous stomach before an event. They'll get butterflies in their stomach if they see somebody that they like. So our gut feelings and brains are deeply connected, and a lot of us don't realize how deeply connected those things are. So like stress and anxiety, mood and behavior. So if you're not feeling amazing, sometimes that's really going back to what's going on in your gut, and your stomach is giving you that gut feeling. Like there's a reason why we don't go up a dark alley at nighttime, because we, first of all, we're like a little bit scared. Second of all, it's like our bodies are like, don't go there. Like our bodies are telling us a lot of things before we even know that they're telling us things. So as far as like mental health and you, like nutrition is definitely overlooked, I would say, as being a way of managing our overall health. It does have a really good effect on our mood, and there are more neurotransmitters like within our stomachs that are produced in the digestive tract than in the brain. So we've got all these like happy little gut guys over here. The brain and the gut develop from the same tissue in the fetus. So when if you know your biological parents, your gut bacteria is often very similar to theirs. And then our emotions and feelings are very intimately associated with our intestinal function. So if you're really stressed out, and you are eating something, your digestion might be compromised. So if you're not feeling very good, or you're stressed out about something that's happening and you go to eat, you might feel some symptomology of like bloating. You may not feel your absolute best after, and that often has to do with what's going on in your gut. So our gut and mood. So when I talked about those neurotransmitters today, earlier, these are the ones that I was talking about. So the two, I would say the most common ones that you may have heard of, you might not have heard of them at all, is dopamine. So dopamine is basically like the feelings of pleasure. It's our reward system in our brain. And then there's serotonin. So this is like for mood and appetite, things like that. So they're basically chemical messengers. So what's really interesting is like a lot of these most people don't know a lot about them. Some people do know some about them, but then there are also medications when these things aren't firing off. Like there are medications that doctors will prescribe to help you feel these good feelings too. But there's lots of foods that also help with that too. So some of the neurotransmitters you've definitely heard of are the dopamine, sometimes GABA. They're responsible for our mood, our anxiety levels, our concentration, and our reward centers. So if you're stressed out about something, it's definitely much harder to be using your like key concentrating brain. So these are natural sources of boosting our mood. So you are going to get a copy of the slide deck, so you can always like check back at it. So the dopamine is our reward chemical. So completing a task, doing some form of self-care. So like if you painted your nails, or like if you took a really long, luxurious shower and like washed your hair. Eating food is another one of those things. And also taking time to make that food. Like there is a lot of like beauty in creating your meals and celebrating your wins. So we definitely don't celebrate things long enough. So when something good happens, we're like, oh, this really amazing thing happened. And then we just like move past it. When something dark and not so amazing happens, we like sit in it And we like, and it's not that we shouldn't, because we're sitting in that, but why aren't we sitting in our wins for longer? Because it does feel selfish to like over celebrate something, but at the same time, like you do deserve that opportunity to celebrate something good that's happened to you. Oxytocin, so this is our love hormone, which is very nice. So petting an animal, playing with a baby, I'm sure that if you like babies and animals, you felt this, like just like such a deep love for them without really understanding why you love them so much. Holding hands with someone, hugging a loved one, which is a sad time right now because we can't give a lot of hugs. Giving compliments is also one of those things too, like telling someone that they look really great or that they're smart or funny, things like that. Serotonin. Meditating. I also want to do a little note about meditating. Meditation isn't necessarily something that every person thinks is right for them, but there's also something to be said about mindfulness as well. So it doesn't have to be meditation where you're like sitting in quiet. Meditation can also be just like going outside for a walk, but so can mindfulness, where you're really like going for a walk and like paying attention to like the flowers on the trees and like paying attention to like the smells in the air and the energy outside and the sun on your face. Like it's almost like you're bathing in this opportunity. Oh, 1 second. Sorry. Oh, that's just a question. Okay, sorry. So the going back, like you're basically like bathing in like the opportunity to be outside. So running, swimming, cycling, sun exposure, being in nature are those things as well. And then there's endorphins, so the painkiller, so laughter, dark chocolate, essential oils, and then watching a comedy. We all know that like many of us have like a really funny friend that's the best, that makes us laugh all the time. And that's really, really nice to be able to have that opportunity to just like laugh and be around someone that makes you laugh. And exercising is another one of those things. Some people get a really good feeling from like sweaty types of exercise, but is not the only form of exercise that I recommend. I would say consistency is almost more important than like being like, I'm going to work out really hard for an hour. But if you go for a walk every morning and the sun hits your face when the sun is shining, that's a really awesome opportunity as well. So this has really come up a lot pandemic wise, sugar cravings. People are just like, I'm just going to sit at home and eat a lot of sugar. And I get it. Like it feels dark. Like that's what we want to do. But the things that we're missing are the serotonin and dopamine. We're missing human connection. We're missing people. And yes, like we have Zoom, we have other ways to connect, but you know, being around people, like the people that you love, because you can be an introvert as well, but being around the people that you love and that you like, you crave that attachment. And that's something that we're all craving right now. So as far as sugar goes, like there is a biological reason as to why we want sugar and why sugar is so delicious. So our brain requires a constant supply of blood sugar to function properly. So hypoglycemia must be avoided, and blood sugar imbalance. So hypoglycemia can happen to anyone. It doesn't mean that you're diabetic. So that's often when you're feeling shaky, you don't feel amazing, you're starting to feel like dizzy, things like that, depression, anxiety, irritability, fatigue, headache, blurred vision, excessive sweating, mental confusion, incoherent speech, convulsions, and then feeling cold after eating often is another sign of that. If you're eliminating refined carbohydrates from the diet, it really does help. It doesn't mean that you cannot eat refined carbohydrates, but it does mean that if you are eating those refined carbohydrates, combining it with a fat is probably a really good idea. So if you're eating, you know, an Aero bar, you should eat it with some walnuts so that you're bringing that blood sugar down. So it's not rising up so quickly, because then it's almost like if you just imagine there's like a sugar cube, but then you put a walnut on top of it, it's not going to go into the body as quick. It's going to be like this, but if it's just straight sugar, it goes into the bloodstream very, very quickly. So the standard North American diet. So this is the average North American diet. In America they call it SAD, so standard American diet, which makes people not feel really amazing at all much of the time. So our blood sugar starts here and then it goes up and then it plummets and then goes up and goes down. So like the average person might have like a bagel in the morning, blood sugar raises, crashes. They have a granola bar with some sugar in it. Then they have like a sandwich with like maybe a small amount of protein in it, but not a lot of fat. And then a cookie in the afternoon with a coffee because they're feeling kind of low. And then afternoon, like maybe some snacks before dinner, some alcohol before dinner, and then eating dinner, and then having some snacks after. So then we're constantly on this type of roller coaster, because we're not necessarily combining our food really well together. So that would help us a little bit more. But a lot of people are on this roller coaster where they're like, I feel good. Oh, I feel really tired. I feel good. Oh, I feel really tired. And many of us are on this little ride. So we're going to look at some mood boosting foods. I will talk about, like, you know, we can talk about it after if you're following a vegan diet. Like, these things include both meat eating and non-meat eating. So if you are eating meat, fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, tuna, sardines, these do have omega-3 fatty acids. So your brain is made up of mostly fat. So it's really important to have a lot of healthy fat. It has been linked to lower levels of depression when you don't have enough fat for your brain. And then eating fish 3 to 5 times a week or taking a fish oil supplement is also useful. But if you're not eating fish, or you don't like fish, or you think it's gross and it's not for you, then algae oil supplements are also available, and they're really good because fish eat algae. So you're basically getting what you need without eating an animal-based source, which is pretty awesome. And many studies have shown that can have the same effect as eating fish. Hemp, chia, and flax and walnuts are also all great options for overall brain health and for healthy fats to get within the body. And when you're getting hemp, chia, or flax, you purchase them in like a sort of like it's best to purchase them in like sealed bags. And then once you open them, put them in the fridge, because these are very sensitive to heat and light. So if they get light exposure, they get heat exposure, they start to degrade. I don't know if any of you have ever smelled like older walnuts or like older almonds. They have like a sort of like oily-ish smell. And that means that they're not as good, and they're not giving you the right nutrition anymore. So that's just something to be aware of. So complex carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, oats, bananas, wild rice, like these things are full of fiber. They really help stabilize your blood sugar throughout the day. They are also a source of B vitamins. So B vitamins are really amazing at keeping people alive and making them feel alive. So they'll fill you up, so you're less likely to overeat other foods. So sometimes people are following really low carbohydrate diets, which is completely fine, and it might work really well for them. But then if they avoid things like they never eat bananas, they never eat plantains, they never eat a potato, they just avoid all those things because they're like worried about it being a weight issue, that can become a little problematic. Legumes are a really good option because they are cost effective, they're really inexpensive. Many of them are very inexpensive, and they're really filling. Plus they're a protein, and they're a fiber, and they're a carbohydrate. They're just like an all around good food, and all around good option for people. So dark chocolate. The news is good about dark chocolate. So many people are like, are you sure I can have chocolate? I'm like, yes, you totally can have chocolate. There's a lot of mood boosting things in chocolate. So there's flavonoids. There's a little bit of caffeine in chocolate. So when I have clients that are maybe at like 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day, I'm like, you know what? Let's just like switch your afternoon cup of coffee to a tea. It can be a black tea. It's got a little less of a caffeine hit, and have it with a little bit of dark chocolate. So there are a lot of similar things with chocolate and like just like energizing mood bases. So that's really good. 70% and up is better. Like anything lower isn't giving you enough cocoa, and it's not giving you the right things. So Camino or Lindt are really great options. You can get, I would say that like Lindt is probably the easiest to find, and besides also being the easiest to find, there's just like a lot. It's like very, like you can just go anywhere and grab it, you know, like it's at a Shoppers Drug Mart, it's at a Loblaws, it's like, it's pretty accessible. And they have like, they start at 70, they have like a 78, they have an 80 and 85. So if you're looking to get up, like I'm at 95 these days, but it took me a long time to get there. Like I now find that like 95% dark chocolate is really good to me. And then when you're starting to have it, having like 1 or 2 squares is really good, because it is very self-regulating. It's not the same as eating like a Reese's peanut butter cup or an Aero bar or a dairy milk bar where you want to eat a lot of it. With these, they're like bigger pieces, and you're like, whoo, I'm getting full. Like you can't overeat it really. So again, 1 to 2 small squares a day. when a slump hits, the fat in the chocolate provides more energy than a cookie, which is pretty great. So fermented foods. So our ancestors, grandparents, maybe even were often using, maybe you are currently eating fermented foods. So yogurt, kefir, kombucha, kimchi. It just sounds like I'm yelling out spells, but these are all things that are really good for the gut. So again, the 90% of our neurotransmitters, those feel-good transmitters, are located in our guts. So it's really important for a good, healthy digestive tract, and they contain probiotics, which are the good bacteria. So if you ever are on an antibiotic, it doesn't know the difference between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, and it wipes out all the good stuff. So what we want to do is sort of like re-inoculate ourselves with the good stuff. So there's lots of sugar-free options for yogurt. You can add vanilla and honey, and then you can enjoy any one of these a few times a week. So pickles or sauerkraut, any of that stuff. And it's just like having a little bit a day. So if you bought pickles, it's best if they're from the fridge because they still have like all the good stuff in them. And then you can take those things and basically put them into just like have them on the side of your dinner, or throw a little Greek yogurt on top of some granola, some plain Greek yogurt, and flavor it with vanilla and cinnamon, and you're good to go. You've already got all the things that you need for that day as far as fermented foods go. So why are we eating fermented foods, and why do we make such a big deal about it? And why am I like, blah, 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 eat fermented foods? So if you're not going to eat any of these, I would recommend taking a probiotic. You can get a good baseline probiotic even at the grocery store. Getting a shelf-stable one will probably make it easier for you to remember to take it, because when something gets put in the fridge, sometimes we're like, I forgot to take it. But when you are eating well and when you are buying a higher quality supplement, you definitely do not need to take it every single day unless you're trying to like rebuild something. For example, if someone's trying to rebuild their iron, even taking that iron supplement every other day is actually quite useful. But some people like to take it every single day if they're looking to rebuild that currently. Yeah. So to make sure that you're having a bowel movement every day, and if you're not, speaking to a professional is very important. So you do want to go, so constipation is if you're on day 3 of not eliminating, or getting right into the poop here, but it isn't very good for your body because you're ingesting, but then you're not letting anything out, which isn't very awesome. So that would be like a very big thing to just be paying attention to. These foods really help increase satiety as well. So if you're eating a pickle on the side, or you have things like that, then you're definitely able to digest a bit better by eating some of these foods. And then our final mood boosting food is coffee or green tea or matcha tea. You can also get this from drinking like other teas, especially like it's not a cold day today, but there is something just really nice about being able to have something warmer in your body when you're not feeling like the world's best. And it does give you a little bit of an energy boost. So caffeine can act as a mild antidepressant by increasing the release of dopamine and norepinephrine. So that just gives you like a little bit of more liveliness. But if you're drinking maybe 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day, you're not necessarily going to get this same effect. It can help with alertness. So if you're looking at making sure that you don't want to have too much caffeine, decaf coffee can also increase like good mood feelings. There's lots of antioxidants found in coffee, and Swiss water processing is the best process because it's not a chemical process. So there's lots of like regular brands that actually have Swiss water processed coffee, Kicking Horse being one of them, and even PC brand has Swiss water processed decaf coffee. 1 to 2 cups a day. Again, like limiting consumption is important to not affect your sleep. So if you're so coffee's half-life is 6 hours. So if you had a coffee at like, when someone's like, want a coffee at 4? I'm like, are you crazy? I'm like, never going to be able to sleep again. But 6 hours later, you still have half the caffeine in your body. So I encourage people like 2:30, 3. I'm like, okay, like give it up. Like that's the last one that you should have for the day. Unless it's a decaf coffee, then we can have that conversation of coffee is your absolute favorite thing in the whole world. Caffeine-free tea is really good as well. The other option is matcha tea. It is like, this is, that little picture down there, like you can get like a matcha whisk. Oh, I went ahead too quickly. There's like a little matcha whisk that you can use, but like, honestly, it's just like, you can get it in a powder, mix it with some hot water, add whatever like milk you'd like to add to it, and then have it that way. It's just like creamy green tea, I feel like is the best way of describing it. Okay, so bad mood foods. So we have this grumpy turtle here. He's not looking happy. He's a grouch. So these often can come from like things that are happening in our lives, but also can come from food sensitivity. So if there's a food, if you eat and you're really tired after eating, you've got headaches, joint pain, that might mean that there's a food not working for you. So with a lot of my clients, I just get them to write down, like, if they suspect something, I'm just like, okay, if you're suspecting something, just write down what you're eating for even a week, and then write down your symptomology like right after. Like, so right after, if you feel bloated right after, that might be a sign. 3 hours later, are you still bloated? Did you have a weird bowel movement? Are you burping? Is there a lot of excess gas? Are you getting a headache? Or your joints hurting? Those things are all signs that there might be a food that isn't necessarily the best food for you specifically. We're all different people. It doesn't mean that every single person is going to react the same to every single food. However, there are some baseline foods that a lot of people don't do really well with. One of those foods being just eating too much sugar. So artificial colors, flavors, and refined sugar, which when you look at this, you just think that's in a lot of kids' food. Like a lot of cereals, a lot of their snack foods are food dyed because it's appealing to kids. And that's what we're giving them. And then they're acting out, or we think they're a bad kid, but it's really not that. So again, nutrient deficiencies, we're going to look at how to round out a meal to make sure that you're getting everything. And if there's something missing in your current diet, how to add that thing in. Again, it's not about like completely eliminating everything. It's definitely about making sure that you're finding what the right balance is for you specifically. So sleeping, I love sleeping. Sleeping is my favorite activity. When it's like, if I could take a nap every afternoon, I would. Not even because I'm tired, just because I like the warmth of sleeping and like blankets. So the direct disruption of a sleep schedule can leave people distracted. It can impair their memory. So I'm wearing like blue light blocking glasses right now. So because I look at a screen now for my job almost all day. Like I start in the morning and then I don't finish often until 7. And then I have work to do for my clients. So then I'm like looking at my computer screen for a really long time sometimes. So I just don't want the extra effects of blue light. So I did get blue light blocking glasses. You can get ones that actually have like an orange tint to them as well. But we are all looking at our phones. So the one thing that I do recommend is that like in your settings of any phone, I'm just going to show you now, there should be like, so depending on whatever like type of phone that you have, there's like a display section, and you might see that there's like a blue light filter on there. So, and you can turn that on or off, and then there's night mode as well. So my blue light filter is like sunset to sunrise, and it just automatically gets turned on, and it makes the phone more of an orange color. So they've done studies where they've looked at spectrums of light. So I'm sure that you've been out for a walk even in the evening and like walk by someone's house and it looks like there's a blue glow. That's really just their television screen that's actually giving that blue glow off. So they've also done the same sort of test with like green light, and then orange warm colored light is actually the best for sleeping because it actually mimics what our ancestors were sleeping with, which is fire. So that's actually the best color of light. And on your computers as well, I'm not sure if I can show you. I think I can. I have this little thing up here called Flux that you might be able to see. So basically you can just install this on your screen so that you can see like a different color spectrum so that it's not fully like blue light. So when I'm working on my computer really late, it starts to have like an orange glow to it. Yeah, so that's something that you can do as well for your overall health. So are you sleeping? So drinking caffeine by 2 p.m., again, like you might need to work your way back. If you're already drinking a coffee at 5, like you might want to work back in 30-minute increments, perhaps, if you're a later coffee drinker. So stop eating at least 2 hours before bedtime. Again, there's some people, this is different. This is sort of, but I would say that gives you the maximum amount of time to digest. I don't sleep well with a really full stomach. Like I can like feel my body like digesting, but I have many clients that are like, I need to go to bed with a full tummy. So I'm like, hey, have an apple with nut butter before bed if that's what helps you sleep. Eat some carbohydrates at night to help increase serotonin and tryptophan. So tryptophan is that amino acid I'm sure you've heard of because it's like the turkey falling asleep amino acid. It's a very relaxing neurotransmitter, and then eating a tub of ice cream is not going to give you the complex carbohydrates you're looking for. Potatoes, squash, brown rice, anything at dinner will do the trick, and then even having some oats before bed too. There are some sleepy time teas that you can try, chamomile, valerian root, and catnip. If you are on any prescription medications, it's really important always when taking any form of herbal tea to just check with a pharmacist or check with your doctor. Pharmacists know most of the interactions almost better than a doctor because that's what they've studied and they know a lot. So pharmacists, I would say, are like maybe one of the most underused tools in our healthcare box because we don't ask them enough questions, but they know so much. Magnesium, so magnesium glycinate is actually the best option to be taking. So there's another magnesium called magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate definitely is not as well absorbed as glycinate, and some people will have loose stool, which isn't cool. So we want to watch out for that. So glycinate is the one that we are looking for when taking magnesium. It's also really good for joint health. And it can relax the body too, and it's burned through for stress, and we'll look at that in a moment. And then limiting alcohol. So I know a lot of people are like, I can take a nightcap because it's going to help me sleep, and it does. It helps you fall asleep, but it doesn't help you stay asleep, and that's problematic. So melatonin, I will say that is not a terrible tool to be using, but it shouldn't be used regularly unless someone's a shift worker. There should be other things that we're looking at, sort of creating a better sleep routine to make sure that you are getting the quality sleep that you deserve. So keeping a routine, going to bed and waking up at the same time when accessible. I don't say this every single day. Like if you want to stay up later, like in the summer, sitting outside, like be my guest. But don't, like, if you have like really erratic bedtimes and you're trying to create a better mental state for yourself and a better routine, then it is really good to be like, okay, I'm going to go to bed at 10 and I'm going to get up at 6 or I'm going to get up at 7. I am not against sleeping in at all. Like, I don't actually think that someone should force themselves to get up when they're feeling really tired. Like if you plan to get up at 6:30 and your body is just too hard to get out of bed, stay in bed. Like stay in bed until 7:30 if you need to. Stay in bed until 8 because your body is basically saying, I need some extra rest. And then try the next night to go to bed a little bit earlier if you can. Again, avoiding the blue light, which we already looked at. So Flux, putting those blue light filters on your phone, blue light blocking glasses like I'm wearing, having a hot shower or bath 30 to 60 minutes before bed. So you're raising your body temperature and then cooling it. So if you have air conditioning or a fan, there's even cooling sheets that you can purchase now. Those would be really helpful at just like lowering your body temperature because we are made to like sleep at different temperatures that are like a bit lower, like 18 degrees is like a much better sleeping temperature for many people. 18 to 20, you get cold at first and then you warm up. So get some sunshine in the morning. So one of those things that I always tell people to do, I'm like, go and stand outside. They're like, people are gonna think I'm crazy. And I was like, well, they should be standing outside too. So even if you stand near a window and you get some like direct sunlight in your eyes, like that's really nice and that's really helpful. If you're able, go for a walk in the sunshine, of course, while maintaining physical distancing in these times, sitting near a sunny window or using a UV light. So I did buy a happy light. That's what they call it, a happy light in the winter. I can say that it was really bright and it does mimic getting sunlight in your eyes. And when you're on like day 10 of like no strong sunlight in your eyes in the middle of winter, it definitely helps. I cannot say whether or not it is a placebo effect, but I will say that type of light hitting my eyes was very useful for me in the dark days of winter. Getting exercise, and everyone has definitely been a bit more sedentary since we're like doing a lot of stuff out of our home. So we're just trying to fit in a bit of exercise, go outside, do some light yoga, do some stretching, have a dance party in the kitchen, like, you know, just go outside. Like even for a quick walk around the block, you will just feel a bit better. And often when we were in workplaces, we were getting up, going to talk to coworkers, and now we've just lost that little bit in our lives now. So stress, this is a big one. So stress really does affect our body in a lot of different ways. There's a lot to this, but again, you can go back and take a peek at it. It affects our brain. It like can give us a foggy brain, our throat and lungs. So like if you've ever had like a panic attack or trouble breathing, that's one of those things that definitely affects us. Stomach. So again, you might be feeling nauseous, things like that. Your heart. Heart beats really quickly when you're scared, or if you're having a confrontation or conflict with someone, your heart just starts like beating really quickly. Your livers can get very stressed. Stomachs, intestines, blood vessels, and our nervous system. So we're going to talk a lot about the nervous system, but it does affect your entire body, and it does affect a lot of our main organs. And I think it's often overlooked and not paid attention to. So when we're like, why do I feel so tired? Why does my body hurt? Like a lot of that can come back to stress. I'm not here to tell you not to be stressed. It's a really stressful time, but I am here to help you figure out what we can do to sort of mitigate some of that stress. So I'm going to look at joint health. So while calcium and vitamin D are essential for joint and bone health, moving the body is even more essential. So if you're not sitting, if you're like just sitting all the time, you're never moving your body, but even going like this, right? It's like pumping nutrition into the joint and helping your body. So a lot of us are feeling like shoulder tension, jaw tension. Like even if you just like massage your own jaw, you're like, ooh, that is tight. Wrists, fingers, ankles, knees, hips, all of those things have some problems. Some natural remedies are Epsom salt baths, where you can just very easily get that at a grocery store or at a pharmacy. Gentle stretching, strengthening small muscles. So things like bar class, beginner yoga, doing, again, gentle stretches, even just doing things like this, like closing and opening your feet, lifting your leg, moving your arm, hot or cold packs as well. And then weight management to help with the load on joints, if that's an issue as well, like going up and down stairs, because that's always something that adds a little bit of extra load and that can cause some of our joints to feel achy. Gentle movement and the best food. So walking, cycling, or swimming, these are all lower impact ways of moving our bodies. And then some herbs that are really useful are turmeric and ginger. There's lots of ways of just like adding, like turmeric, I will say, will stain everything. So it does stain everything really yellow. So be careful. If you have white countertops, you don't want to be like pouring that directly into the pot. If you're making something, or if you're getting a tea, there's lots of turmeric ginger teas that you can have. Potassium rich foods like leafy greens, sweet potatoes, bananas, avocado, and coconut water. If you like coconut water, it's, again, after you've been outside for a really long time, you've been very sweaty, potassium rich foods are very, very useful because it's going to balance our sodium and potassium together. Calcium and vitamin D. So vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So you have to get some of that fat in order to absorb it. I spelled that fat in order to absorb it. So when you're getting like if you're taking a vitamin D pill, it's best to be eating it with a healthy fat, like an avocado or some nuts or some seeds. There's also lots of liquid. I wonder if I have this little liquid dropper of vitamin D here. So it already comes in like an oil. And I take this one every day. So the darker your skin, the more difficult it is actually for you to absorb vitamin D from the sun. Vitamin D also like hits this part of our body. So like it is absorbed best in the neck, it's absorbed in the face, it's absorbed in the arms as well. So like the areas that are more likely to be exposed in the summer, but not likely to be exposed in the winter, because we're all like, now that we're wearing masks too, we're not getting that extra light on our faces. And so because it sort of sits, like vitamin D sits on the top of the skin, I am not saying not to shower, I'm saying that now, but I am saying that, like, you know, all the scrubbing that we do, we're just washing off some of what could be absorbed. So even if you're just like taking a little rinse, wash your armpits, wash your other bits, but be careful about like over washing off the vitamin D, because it really does help with mood. And most doctors won't even do vitamin D testing in Canada because most of us are not getting adequate vitamin D. And all the healthy fats are very useful for our bodies and our brains and our joints. So olives, olive oil, seeds, coconut oil are also other great options. So getting our body moving. What's the best exercise? Whatever you're going to do, honestly. Like people are like, I heard that I should take up baton twirling. And I'm like, oh, well, you also could do something that is normal, that you like don't even need to learn. You are welcome to take up anything you want, but sometimes people try to do things and they're like, I didn't like it, and then they just stop. So it's like really finding the thing that works for you. So combine it with being outdoors and in the sunshine for the limited amount of time that we have sun, walking, running, hiking, skiing, skating, yoga. Again, it's not for everyone, but it's not only for the flexible people. Like I've been doing yoga for years, and one of the nutritionists is a yoga teacher, and she's like, I still don't understand how you can't move more forward than that. I was like, it's just who I am. I'm like, I can't, I'm not overly flexible, but I do like the act of doing yoga. Exercise does not have to be intense, but to see a result, consistency is actually the key. And accountability, again, when we can. Group classes are amazing. If you've ever been to one, it's just like nice to be around other people, and then going outside with friends, family, loved ones, partners, things like that. So we've got these two nervous systems, our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. I'm going to start on the parasympathetic side. This is our relaxation response. It calms us down. It prepares us for rest. It's the think and restore side. So your heart beats in slow rhythmic patterns. Your breath is full. The pupils of the eyes shrink. Your gut is active. It conserves your energy. And then our sympathetic nervous system is where, you know, you're preparing to fight. There is a fight response, a freezing response to, if you've ever, you know, been driving and there's been like a bunny in the road, they just freeze. I feel like their sympathetic nervous systems are like, ooh. So your body, your blood rushes to your skeletal muscles and away from your brain, and it makes it harder to think clearly, which is often what happens in a crisis situation, things like that. It expends a lot of energy, and everything is just, you're just starting to feel anxious. Some of the ways to bring that stuff back is by taking deeper breaths and like literally just putting your hand on your heart and being like, okay, I got to give myself a moment here, depending on what the accessibility of that is and the situation that you're in. So this again, like shows that the constriction of the pupil in the parasympathetic, and then the dilation of the pupil in the sympathetic. The parasympathetic breathing is actually what can stimulate that, and just like being calm. And then we've got our sympathetic nervous system over here. So again, it relaxes the bladder, things like that. So which is why people might pee themselves when they're very scared. So taking a breath. So there's something called 4-7-8 breathing, which is right here. Definitely not a cure-all at all. I'm not saying that you can just breathe your troubles away. But most of us don't take a really large, deep breath until like the end of the day or the end of a work day or anything like that. We just like shallow breathe, like, so taking a deep breath. So the 4-7-8 breathing pattern, if you've never heard of it or have never done it, is you're breathing in for 4, and then you're holding your breath for 7, and then breathing out for 8. I don't necessarily follow that exact one. I do 4, 4, and 4. I feel like I have a small lung. I like can't like hold my breath for a very long time, or it like makes me panic. So I just like breathe in and then breathe out for 4. And that usually works really well. It's also very, very similar to like yogic breathing, if you've ever done yoga. Again, like it just helps you calm down a little bit more. And then a meditation practice or a mindfulness practice that we mentioned as well, where I start my day most days just like with some breathing, and I like let the sun hit my skin, and then I just like will breathe a little bit before I like start answering emails and doing work and doing things like that, just to like settle myself and like calm my mind and try to go outside for a walk or things like that. So being mindful of processed foods, so MSG, and I'm talking about North American MSG, not what's traditionally used in other cultures. Food coloring, aspartame, you might feel hungry after eating if this is all you've eaten. These are not never foods, but they should not make up the majority of our meals. And then emotional eating. So a lot of the time when we're not feeling amazing, we're like, I'm going to get a treat, and which is a completely normal reaction. But I try to encourage people to eat these things in good situations versus situations where they're feeling down, because they're not going to help you. It will temporarily help you feel a little more alive, but they're not going to be long-lasting feelings of feeling very well. So if you have a nutrition deficiency, so there's like, you can get all these things tested, but a lot of the time it's just better to try to include them all. any single nutrient can alter brain function and lead to depression, anxiety, and other disorders. So folate's really good. So some people that have some depressive symptoms, folate is really important. So 31 to 35% of depressed patients are deficient. In elderly depressed patients, is 35 to 92.6. So it's really important to just be including these things in our diets. Meat-based sources, if you are eating meat, B12, meat like liver, eggs, chicken, things like that. B6 is bananas, oats, and chicken. It has been shown to be low. It's also really important for women. Any women that have ever taken a birth control pill as well, even previous to, even in their 20s, it still affects you. And then it is really, really important for the manufacture of serotonin, which is going to help us feel really good. But again, taking a B complex can also help with these instead of having to eat all of these foods, especially if you're not eating meat-based foods. So these things that support our immunity. So immunity is a pretty big one right now, just because of the Rona running around. So vitamin C, so found in citrus fruit, peppers, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, leafy greens. So that white spongy stuff, you know, when you like open an orange, you get that like gungy kind of like white part that's actually like has a lot in it, like a lot of nutrition in it. Same thing with peppers as well. So what I say is I'm like, just like you can put it in a smoothie if you want to, and then with peppers, just throw them into a stir fry. If you're eating them raw, it might be a little more like, okay, I don't want to eat the white part, but it does have a lot of good nutrition in it. Vitamin D, which I am always going to bring up, manufacturing vitamin D, the best source is the sun, as we discussed, and then fatty fish, egg yolks, livers, cheese, and then fortified foods. If you are a mushroom eater, there's something really awesome about mushrooms. You can take them, place them in a windowsill or a sunny area, and let them absorb extra vitamin D. Mushrooms are wild. They can grow anywhere. They just do what they want. Some of them can kill us. It's just crazy what mushrooms do. So it's no surprise that they can absorb extra vitamin D by just placing them in sunlight. And then we've got our good friend zinc. So includes meat, shellfish, legumes. Zinc is really important for immunity. You may have taken zinc before getting on a plane, if you've ever gotten on one in the last little bit. And then selenium, of course, which is really good for thyroid health as well. If that's something that you're dealing with, eggs, meat, fish, shellfish, dairy, those whole grains. So there are no foods, I want to be really clear about this, there are no foods that will prevent you from getting COVID-19. So you should follow recommendations, wash your hands, physically distance, wear masks as needed. These are not, if you just eat a bunch of vitamin D and then take a bunch of vitamin C, it doesn't stop that, but it does help build your immunity, specifically from things like a cold or, and stress is one of those things that really bogs down our immunity too. So I think of any time where you've gotten very ill, it might have been a more stressful period in your life. Magnesium, so we burn through it when we are stressed out. So this is the most commonly deficient mineral. Nervousness, irritability, aggressiveness, difficulty sleeping. Green leafy things have this. So again, we talked about the citrate and glycinate for bowel movement. So if that is an issue for you, bowel health is an issue, taking the citrate is very helpful. And then magnesium is a vasodilator, so it loosens tension and can help with blood flow. So many people have used magnesium to help lower their blood pressure, which is really awesome. So then we go back to our friend zinc. So again, it's a critical nutrient for mental health. And it's really necessary for growth, and there's lots of different ways to get it in. Again, you can take it in like a zinc lozenge. I would recommend actually taking vitamin C and zinc before getting on a plane, if that ever happens to you in the next year or so, because it does really help, because that like air is very recycled and gone through. I know you'll probably be wearing a mask. We don't know for how long, but it definitely will help immunity wise if you are taking a zinc supplement. Iron, so iron deficiency can result in a depressed mood, lethargies, problems with attention. You can get an iron test. It's a ferritin test. It is important to do blood work for many of these things as well with a doctor or in a walk-in clinic, just to make sure that you're sitting within a good range. Different people need different ways, different sources of iron, and some people have trouble absorbing iron as well. There's lots of iron fortified grains and iron fortified cereals, which again are very useful in helping people get iron, but meat-based sources are one of those best places. One of them being liver. Not loving that liver, but sometimes you just need to have some. So, sorry, that's a repeat slide. So building a meal. So when we look at building a meal, you want to include fat, veggies, fruit, protein, and then whole grains. When I say whole grain only, I mean like the actual grain in its whole form. So eating like even whole wheat, enriched foods aren't bad. They're not the best option for you. So sprouted whole grains, quinoa, oats, spelt, barley, whole wheat and multigrain are often things that a lot of people are eating. Whole wheat breads, multigrain breads, they're good, but they have like basically like the whole seed in them versus like the actual like full on grain, like the actual oat, the actual quinoa. Eating whole wheat, again, is something that many people are sensitive to without really knowing it. They're very used to having it because it's convenient. I will note here, low glycemic are the best options, but again, the other ones are completely fine. Like there's no problem in eating a lot of squash. Proteins, beans, lentils, chicken, fish. A lot of people, sometimes when they're eating a more vegetarian-based diet, will say, well, broccoli has the same amount of protein as steak. And I was like, yes, but you have to eat a lot of broccoli. Eating 6 cups of broccoli is just a lot of broccoli, I would say. Like, I love broccoli. I love roasted broccoli. I'm a nutritionist. It's like, I'm supposed to love it, but I can't eat 6 cups of broccoli in one sitting. It's just not possible. So improving our energy. So you could hold light in your hands like this, or you could stay hydrated. If you're into essential oils or anything like that, peppermint or orange essential oils, and all citrus in general, like is very mood boosting. A grapefruit, if you can eat grapefruit and it doesn't interact with medications, or oranges or tangerines or clementines or pomelos, whatever works for you. Warm drinks are helpful, sunlight. And if the tiredness persists, you should see someone, but don't neglect your consistent sleep, and movement is a base of this. And then improving our energy, again, proteins, fats, and those complex carbohydrates. So eggs, local if possible, grass-fed meats, vegetarian proteins, our healthy fats, nuts, seeds, coconut butter. I think that we've been taught to sort of fear a lot of these things, but eating colorful fruits and vegetables combined with these things are really good. So if you're eating veggies and hummus, if you're eating fruit and nuts, or you're eating, you know, things like that, that makes actually more of a rounded out meal, which is useful. And then our complex carbs, again, the sweet potatoes, the squash, and those gluten-free whole grains or gluten-containing whole grains like barley, if that's not a problem for you. Alcohol. So alcohol sales have really jumped in Canada, like a lot. So these are the guidelines that we were given. So 10 drinks a week for women, and then 15 drinks a week for men. I think that a lot of people are drinking way more, just pandemic wise. These guidelines I find quite high, in honesty. A lot of my clients, we try to get them to be drinking other things, but then again, you can still cut back on these things while still enjoying diluting your drinks. Every alcoholic drink, have a non-alcoholic drink. So if you're drinking a beer, have a water, then have a beer, and then have a water. Always make sure you're drinking enough water in the day. Like, water drinking is one of those things that, you know, is all over the place, but I just try to say, I'm like, get 2 liters, okay? If you're getting 2 liters, we're gonna leave you alone. If you're not getting that, then we can think of different ways of including that. Even having watery foods, zucchini, tomatoes, cucumber, watermelon, all count towards water intake as well. Trying a sparkling water, things like Perrier, bubbly, Zivia, and kombucha instead as well. So these are just some recipes for quarantinis, when you're looking to have something that's alcohol-free. Improving your concentration. So just making sure you're eating regular meals to keep your blood sugar balanced. Then each meal should contain protein, good fats, and fiber, which I've been yammering on about for the last 45 minutes. And then breakfast, lunch, afternoon snack, dinner, and dessert. These are just all examples. Again, doesn't have to be like this, but these are just different ideas that you could have. Again, dessert being a dark chocolate, things like that. And then breakfast, making sure you're getting a good hit of protein in the morning and a good hit of fat if those things are accessible to you. So looking at the 4 macronutrients, so our protein, good fats, carbohydrates, fiber, and water. And then our proteins are eggs, fish, lean meats, legumes, beans and lentils, tofu, edamame, things like that. Dairy, if it works for you, be my guest, get into that dairy. Good fats, nuts, seeds, fish, fruits, oils for cooking, olive, avocado, coconut, grapeseed are all great options. And then carbohydrates, so whole grains, legumes, vegetables, and fruit as well. So in summary, we're like opting for whole foods always. We're eating a protein-rich breakfast, which is going to set you up. If you don't like eating breakfast in the morning, make sure that you're drinking water before you have that first coffee. Eating regular meals is very essential. You want to include high quality protein. Doing so will help keep your blood sugar stable. Even like having a chickpea salad and eating that for 3 days is really useful. Or, you know, if you want to batch cook a chicken soup and have that for 3 days, that's really useful too. I will be providing some recipes to all of you, and you can look through them. They'll be vegetarian and meat based as well. Avoiding the fast foods, processed foods, and sugar. You can totally eat them, but it just cannot make up the entire day where you will not feel as well as you could. Keeping a food journal just to see if you're not feeling the best from certain foods. I work a lot with people that have a lot of food sensitivities. When David had mentioned the FODMAPS, it basically is like, it's a diet where people have to, like, they just have so many food sensitivities that they have to like go and test out like how much of a certain thing they can have. And the foods are healthy or they're not healthy, but it has a lot to do with gut integrity. But when you're doing a FODMAPS diet, you have to eat like 5 centimeters of celery and see if it makes you bloated. It's a very complex thing to do. However, a lot of people go through that, sort of fix some of their like gut bloating and things like that, and then go back to being able to eat a lot more foods than originally they were able to eat. Water, don't forget to drink your water. Have a water bottle. Like you're in the office, just like pretend that you do. Like I have tons of drinks with me at all times. I have a water bottle over there. Like, so flavor your water with lemon, limes, herbal tea bags. There's lots of water enhancers that you can buy now that don't have aspartame in them. If you need help, set a timer every hour. There's also like lots of tips and tricks. Like people put like an elastic, or they buy those like water bottles that like encourage them to drink different things. But again, if you're going to drink an herbal tea, even, it counts towards your water. So you want to limit, if this is an issue for getting up, limit drinking water for 2 hours before bed so that you don't wake up in the middle of the night, because that's a real thing. And that's all for now. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. If you do want to join us, we have an Instagram and then we have a Facebook. So it's Cabin Nutrition's group. Both are free, and we have lots of things there. And then we do have this 7-day meal plan and a kitchen clean out guide that you can look at as well. Okay, I'm going to stop that share. I'm going to see what questions there are. Okay.
We have one, Jenny, from Sharon, and it is, my question is about keto and intermittent fasting. Can you advise about the 6/18 formula?
Yeah.
Eat 6 hours and fast 18. I'd like to choose a time, 3 to 9, to include 2 meals.
So I would say that diet specifically is an interesting one because it doesn't work for every single person. So the formula for many people is to finish their eating at around maybe like 6 or 7, and then not eat until the next day, until noon or later. So right now, I think I'd like to choose a time 3 to 9. So some people use the 12 to 8 sort of scenario. So they eat between the hours of 12 noon and 8 p.m. and then they don't eat anything else. But I will say that it really is for the individual. If you find that when it's time for you to eat and you're very, very hungry, and like too hungry, like you almost eat 3 meals instead of just 2 meals, then it might not necessarily be working for you in the best way. But it is definitely something that can work for certain people. But if you're finding that you're overeating later, it doesn't help. Like it's not actually working for you. I would say that a lot of us are grazing because we're at home. So if you eat a breakfast, don't have a snack, eat a lunch, maybe have an afternoon snack, and then eat dinner, that's really good too, but it really is like up to you and like how good you feel. Like if you feel light and you feel like you have energy and your brain is working super well, then it definitely works well for you. Yes, I see your little hand. Yes, hi.
That was me, Sharon. Okay.
Hi.
Sorry, I think my connection went
Oh, no,
badly,
okay.
so I missed the beginning there.
Yeah.
It's going in and out. But my two sisters are doing this sort of probably on a more knowledgeable scale.
Mhm.
And I saw these numbers 618 or whatever, and I just happened to find, I'm not a big magazine buyer.
Yeah.
This keto for women
Yeah.
over 50.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it was sensible for once. It isn't all, blah, blah advertising.
Hmm.
So the idea that the window, because the old days of eating breakfast, a good breakfast, get your metabolism going, and then you'll be able to do whatever the metabolism is supposed to do. Well, the idea is, I don't feel like eating in the morning, and I could generally go right through lunch. And then it's like in the afternoon, if I have to choose a window, it would probably be like that. So 3 or 4 to the 8 or 9, because of my husband coming back late and then having a meal together.
Mhm.
So at the beginning of what you said, so if we have unfortunately our main meal in the evening, but then I have sort of something in the afternoon, is that okay? Or what do you think?
Yeah, if you feel good with it, yes. If you don't feel good, like if you're like, wow, I am super hungry and I am cranky, and like, it really comes down to you, like Sharon, if you feel like grouchy, if you feel like your brain's not working properly, if you feel like if you feel like a deep pit of hunger in your tummy, like that's not a good sign. But if you're like using that time window, oh God, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. There really is, it's definitely up to you, but more commonly, and I know that you're following it more so because of when your husband comes, when your husband comes home, then you could follow the 12 to 8, but I don't know if that works well for you because of when he comes home.
So is the 8 hour the best?
The 8 hour is very good because like most people will have like a lunch and then they'll have their dinner and maybe one snack. And then they feel really good with it. But like snacks, I think that we are a snack society and we don't all need as many snacks as we need. So as we're currently eating, but like, let's say that you break fast, at 12:30, and then at around 3, you're like, you know what, I'm feeling peckish, and you're like, I'm gonna have some nuts and like an apple or something like that. And then when your husband comes home, let's say 7:30, and you have your dinner together, and then you just wait until the next day to eat. It really is your energy level. A lot of people feel really good because they're giving their body that really large opportunity for a rest and digest time. So when they're giving themselves a very large time window, but like the typical North American grazing sort of eating is like, okay, eat in the morning, eat at 10:30, eat at 12, eat at 2:30, eat at 5:30, eat at 6:30, and then they have a snack. It's like, when are you digesting, right? Like we need to give ourselves, so when we're talking about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, you want to give your body at minimum, like, because this doesn't work for every single person. Keto does not work for every single person, but like minimum 2 to 3 hours of time to digest. Because if you've got, I'm sure you've all heard that if you take out your intestines, it like fills up a tennis court. There's a lot of food to like go through there. So there's a lot going on in there.
The fast, the idea that the 1 day fast a week, is that relevant? The full fast?
I've had clients do it and none of them have been successful. So I'm using that as a baseline of like, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and most of them hate their fast day. The only people that it works really, 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 really well in is like 20-year-old males. They're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't work. It doesn't seem to work well for women. But like 20-year-old males are like, I love my life. But they're also sleeping for like half the day. So then they wake up and they're like, and then they just do what they want. Like, it's like their fast day, they're asleep for over half of it. So
but if it was like a sick day and you actually slept like the whole day and didn't eat, would that work?
Yeah, but it could. It could. You could just take 1 day a week if that's what you want. But I don't know. I don't know if you would love it as much as you think you would after like the 10th time of doing it.
Jenny, I have a question, because I've got some problems with my sugar levels. I'm one of these people, you sort of alluded to this, I tend to get up a little bit later in the morning. Like I usually get up around, hate to say it, but 10.
That's okay. You do you.
But yeah,
Good.
but it works for me. I know other people like that, but I won't mention any names. But anyways, I work out. You know, I used to work out at Mobile and all this, but I work out at home. And you know, I might not eat until 1 o'clock. And I noticed that I've looked at my hemoglobin A1C, which is your 3-month, sugar levels, all that stuff. And it's a lot better. Like I'm just eating less. I'm drinking a lot more water. And I feel great. Like I guess what I'm trying to say is I personally feel better when I just eat less calories. And is that my question? My question to you is, have there been studies about the correlation between a lower caloric intake per day and just the incidence of different illnesses and diseases?
Yes. So I'll actually when I send you that, I'm going to send you, there's like something called modified day fasting. There's like 4 different ways of doing fasting. It's a scientific review, and it's all about intermittent fasting. And a lot of people have seen diabetes, and blood sugar levels being one of those things that has seen some large changes. So I will send that to you. And there are studies on it, because we are, again, as Sharon was alluding to, not necessarily giving ourselves enough time to digest, right? Like we're not, we're like eating, right? And then we're like, oh, I need to eat, because I'm like, okay, I will send you the intermittent fasting stuff. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, because I know that anytime I've traveled, like if you go to Europe, but it's one thing, if you go to the States, I found in the States, generally speaking, the meal portions are huge.
Oh yeah.
Like, they're enough for 2 people. And which it's got to be correlated with obesity. I mean, here too, but you know, this business of going to these all-you-can-eat places, they're not doing anybody any favor, really, are they?
No, because you're just again, it's sure, if you want to be at a cottage and eat all day and drink all day and hang out with your friends and your family, that's completely fine, totally fine. But that being the only thing that you do is kind of it ends up being a little bit problematic. Sharon, I saw that you put in here IBS. So baseline things for IBS, full baseline is gluten, dairy. It's the baseline. And I'm talking dairy, not really the Greek yogurt, but the cheese and the milk and the high sugar dairy stuff like ice cream, and then just gluten, but low quality gluten. If you're eating a lot of white bread, or eating a lot of buns or a lot of pastries, things like that, removing some of those things out of your diet, even for 2 weeks, where, you're eating a lot of you eat oats, let's say, or you eat quinoa, or you eat beans and chicken and eggs and things like that. That's what I would say would be your baseline thing, is really just doing the food removal and doing doing just a writing down what makes you feel good and what doesn't. So if you're doing your sort of fasting, and then you say, okay, I had Greek yogurt and I put a bunch of just regular granola that had wheat in it, and then you were bloated 30 minutes later, an hour later, and then you didn't have a bowel movement for 2 days or something like that, that would be a sign that maybe that food isn't really working for you. Spending 1 week tracking your food seems tedious and annoying, but it has been one of the most eye-opening things for every person that I've ever worked with, because they're like, oh, who knew, right? Because we're always am I stressed? Is it the air? Does it because of this? And it's no, it's the food that you put into your body. But it's so hard to identify that when you don't have something to help you pinpoint it specifically. Yeah.
Is there a test, a blood test, or there used to be the allergy test, which was very like skin oriented or something. But the thing about milk, my daughter, she's just 19, but she's kind of thinking milk is an issue. And then the gluten, I guess, that whatever that name is that they used to give for the
Celiac.
people.
Yeah.
Celiac.
Yeah.
Friends who had celiac, and then they would like not eat bread, and then they eat a whole loaf, and it was sort of either or, like not good. But the celiac, can you be tested for celiac?
You can, but it doesn't always show up. So the best, yeah, you can be tested for a lot of things, but again, it doesn't always show up. So I've like many people that have been tested for things, but you can have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Like my gluten sensitivity is so intense that I was eating something that was gluten-free, but it wasn't certified gluten-free, and I had to sleep before I could go anywhere. Like I just slept for 2 hours. I was so exhausted, and I was like, huh. And then when I went to go, like when I was like, okay, maybe I do need like a celiac test, my doctor said, you're not going to make it. Like you won't be able to eat the bread that you have to eat in order to do this. You'd have to take off time work if you're going to do that. And I was like, okay. So he was like, just function under the assumption that you have celiac disease. And I was like, okay, good. But I was already avoiding it, right? Like I was already avoiding it. So taking it out of your diet when you're really like focusing in on, you know, go through the presentation again and really focus on what those whole foods are, like oats and rice and millet and teff and like all of those other things are all perfectly good grains that aren't going to make many people feel the same way, right? And if you're following a keto diet, those things are out anyway. There's one other thing from Betty. So yes, Betty, is there any value in peanuts? Yeah, like there totally are. So I would say like, as far as like nuts and like seeds go, peanuts are one of the ones that are, they are inherently moldy. I will say that. So out of like pecans and walnuts and like all those other things, they're like a bit better of a higher quality like nut, but a peanut is like considered under the legume family. But they are still really good. And I do think that it's like a healthy, like good, healthy fat that people can use. Peanut butter is a great snack. We all love peanut butter. It's so good. So almond butter, cashew butter, all of those things. But yeah, it's definitely in there. So happy. Yeah, it is. They are really good. When you're eating them, combining them with like, you know, again, when we were talking about like higher sugar things. So even, peanut sauces and like curries and things like that are also really like just like a nice thing. Like peanut butter chickpea curries are really good because you're getting a healthy fat, plus you're getting like a lot of fiber, and they're very filling. Like you just eat them and you're like, whew, all right, I'm feeling full now. I feel good. So, and like that's the whole purpose. The whole purpose is to be full when you eat, but be full 80%. There's room for a little bit more, but then you just let yourself settle for 25 minutes. And if you're still hungry, go back and eat more of your meal. So when someone is like, I can't finish this large dish or can't finish this large meal, I always remind them, like, go back and eat the rest of your dinner, or go back and eat the rest of your lunch before you have like a snack that's sugary, because that's like really common, right? And then the vitamin and supplements that I would recommend from Anne. So as far as like vitamins and supplements that I would recommend, I would put in sort of things that are from a health food store are best. If you're going to the grocery store, they have brands like Genuine Health. They have brands like Natural Factors, which are both very affordable brands. Natural Factors is probably like, my best friend is a naturopath, and he works for a company called BioClinic, and Natural Factors is their like other brand, and it's really good. So anything at a health food store is just better. I will say this, if you're purchasing any form of supplement from a health food store, make sure you know why you're taking it. Also, the second part of that is when you are taking something like that and you're investing the money in buying a better one, you don't have to take it every day, unless you were trying to deal with like an iron deficiency or like something along those lines. But you definitely don't need to take a lot of like multivitamins, for example. I'm like, if you buy $60 multivitamin, that could last you up to 3 months. Like you don't have to take it every single day. And it's definitely better to take your supplements in times of like stress and things like that. So for women, like if there's like someone going through like right after birth, let's say, like it's really important to keep taking a multivitamin. You just gave birth. So, but a lot of women stop taking their multivitamin after they give birth. And I'm like, no, you just birthed a human person. you need to take all the vitamins you can. And like, that's when I would say like, take them every single day, because you're also then responsible for caring for this little human person you just put into the world. So that's probably maybe like some of the only times, and excessive stress as well. Probiotic. I will get to that in 1 second. I'm going to answer the sleep. The sleep. Is there such a thing as too much sleep? I would say no, because I love sleep. However, yes, but you would know more so from like how you end up feeling. So if you are sleeping for, I don't know, 10 hours and you wake up and you're still tired, that might be a sign. That doesn't necessarily mean you're oversleeping. That actually might be a sign that you're missing something nutritionally. Because there are days where we just feel zonked. Like, it's not this day, but like last week was so cloudy, like the whole week. And I was like, I didn't want to get out of bed. Like I needed sunlight. And then when I woke up, I was like, what is this? Like, so every day, like we can be affected by temperature and things like that. So that's why that happy light, getting sunlight, is also very important. But yeah, like you could be oversleeping, but if you're oversleeping for a reason, that's what ends up mattering a lot as well. And then the probiotic. So the probiotic, my favorite probiotic that I think is like just really easy to find, is the Genuine Health brand probiotic. I will put it in the notes. Actually, when I send David the notes in the meal plan, I'll put the better brands that I know you can find at the grocery store. Because I know that we're not all rushing out to go to a ton of different stores right now. It's best to just go to one. Is that a Jameson one? Yeah.
I found I did some general one, and this was women's probiotic complex. It didn't have a million billion, like this one over here has like 15 billion. I was like, why do you need 15 billion? This was women's probiotic, and this seemed good because the other general one just didn't seem like it did anything. So which one?
I don't love Jameson. I don't love them. However, I wouldn't throw them out. I would continue to take them until you're done and then switch out to the list.
But which there are a million to choose from. So you're showing us which ones, but why do you choose?
So I choose quality and shelf stability.
How do you tell quality?
From education and trying them on myself, right? And like on a bunch of other people. So, and they're also third-party tested. So the higher quality supplements that you can get are tested rigorously, and they'll see which ones have better, like which ones are actually able to withstand certain things. So Jameson, sure, like there's some that are in there and like it's very readily available. And I don't think that they wouldn't work, but I would never use them because I feel like half the time they don't work. Like people are like, I've been taking a magnesium forever and I don't feel a difference. And I'm like, okay, switch the brand, right? If you've never taken a probiotic ever in your life and you're taking a Jameson probiotic, it's probably going to do something for you. So, but when you're looking at higher quality, there's third-party testing, like they're tested by for like what happens if this is exposed to heat? What happens if this is exposed to these certain things? Also, when you said that there's like so many types in there, I used to be of the mindset like earlier in my career to just like dump a bunch of like probiotics into your body and just like cross your fingers. But now I'm more of the mindset of like, eat some fermented food. If fermented food is not something that you like, go for a lower strain and then switch your strains. So if you read the back of that, it's probably got all these like lactobacillus and like, Saccharomyces boulardii and like all these names of different strains. When you have one type of probiotic and you're ready to buy your next probiotic, look for new names of strains so that you're giving yourself different types of probiotics every time that you take a probiotic. So using the same probiotic over and over again seems like it makes sense, but like when you're done with those ones, you can just go to the store and be like, okay, this one doesn't have this, this, and this. I'm going to buy a different probiotic that has new strains in it, because then it just gives you like a lot of different gut microflora, which is amazing. And that's like what helps people feel really good. Because like the more good gut bacteria that we have in our bodies, the more likely we are able to digest and feel really good in our bodies and brains. Yeah.
Andy, I've got a question. It's because
yes.
time is ticking on. Just one last question is, are nutritionists and dietitians, they're not covered by OHIP, are they?
So dietitians are, nutritionists are not. So I am not.
Right.
So dietitians
Has there been any advocacy work by, associations of nutritionists or any professional bodies?
Yes, so
Or
I'm
any-
a part of the CANNP. So that's what my NNCP is. So they do, so there are some insurances that will cover us as well. So they're like Manulife, Green Shield, Desjardins does cover access to a nutritionist. We do a lot of like currently, like right now, we have like I volunteer at a camp for kids that have been affected by cancer or blood disorders. So we have an auction going on right now. I can send you the link of ways of like all the money gets sent to them, but then we're going to see 3 clients with all the money donated to there. So we do a lot of that to sort of make up for the fact that we're not covered as well, because I think it bothers me a lot, and it bothers a lot of us that there's not enough access to good nutrition education out there, enough of it. So that opportunity is there as well. And then we also have our group where we try and like encourage people as much as possible to be following things that we would recommend for them. And then on their individual basis, people can ask questions there. But no, but dietitians are, so I think that there are some really amazing dietitians out there in this world, and they are available. And they are at like a Loblaws, you can make an appointment with them, and they are quite good, and they can give you like I don't know if right now they're doing them, but they used to do like grocery store tours.
Yes, I've seen them there actually, but you're in the same boat as physiotherapists, because yes, physiotherapy is covered by some private insurance carriers, but for those people that aren't working or don't have plans or whatever, OHIP, Ontario government, or different provincial plans probably don't cover it, and it's very unfortunate, because nutrition and physiotherapy and professions like that are such a wonderful determinant of health, and can prevent a lot of costs in other areas from being incurred in the
100%.
first place.
Yeah, like we've written them letters, like we said, like there does need to be more access to like nutrition education. Sharon, I saw that you put the 70%. That's like my favorite dark chocolate ever. But like, so when you have the amounts, the one thing that I will say about it, like, yes, the 70% and up, and then just eating the serving size that's on there, I would follow that serving size. Like,
like one, there's 10 blocks. And you said 2 blocks a day is okay?
Yeah, because I think in that one, I think the 3 of the Lindt, I think is 14 grams of sugar. And that's like a little bit beyond what I would recommend for somebody when they're trying to like really just control their sugar intake, right? So it's like staying below that amount. And same thing with like, so even if someone was like, hey, I'm gonna eat a little bit of an Aero bar, I'm like, okay, but just don't eat like the whole bar. Like eat like a small amount of it. You can do it, I promise.
I used to have a friend with a restaurant in Australia who would serve you a taste of their desserts as a taster tour. And I think this is like the best thing. Like, who wants to eat a whole bunch of the whatever?
Exactly.
And you just have a taste of each one and be like, this is the ideal dessert.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But they don't serve it. You have to get a big slice. What?
It's almost. No, I was just going to say, I'm actually one of those people that would do both. I would eat the whole dessert. The best of both worlds.
Or you could share with everybody. You could put one in the middle, everybody takes a scoop. But the point is to taste the dessert.
Maybe Pal Ottawa will have a dessert. Actually, you know what? That's not a bad idea. I'll suggest it to my colleague Anne, who I see right now, and our chair. It's almost 3:30. It's almost 3:30. So I'd like to thank Jenni on behalf of Pal Ottawa and the audience for